So we want to have a conversation about the. Not, I was about to say the Azimio, the ideals of the Constitution, which is that they want to ensure that there is gender equality in our society and equal society in terms of representation in all spheres of life. And where the Constitution says, in fact, let's look at leadership. In leadership, let's ensure that no one gender has more than two-thirds representation in any sector. So elective positions, we should not have more than two-thirds representation of any gender in any elective bodies. Okay, we have known about that. We had elections in 2013, we had elections in 2017, we have had court cases, we've had orders of the court, we have seen candidates being cleared to vie in the election, we've seen candidates being sponsored by political parties, independent candidates and all. Are we heading anywhere closer to realizing this ideal?
Latif, you've painted the picture of where we are coming from, but I need to go deeper. Otherwise, my teachers-in-law would not be very happy. So let us contextualize this journey. So historically, when we look at our political governance, where we've come from where we started the Legislative Assembly, there were the numbers in the Legislative Assembly for women then have been at a minimum. So when it came to the constitutional reform process that was highly instrumental in the 90s towards the 2000s and eventually to the constitution, one of the things that was being propagated during those times was that it was about time that gender equality as part of a process for us as Kenya should be legislated. And there began the movement through a number of initiatives, including Kenya women rights movements, political party processes through the women caucuses in parliament. And from that kind of historical perspective, we could see that the push for gender representation in parliament would be realized. And the framers of the Constitution actually put it in there through the various articles, including 2781, that when we go into governance, the governance institutions, both elective and appointive, should look at the gender equality question, have greater representation of women as part of a minimum, not the ceiling, a minimum basic for governance institutions that at least a third of the proportion should be given to women or situated for women. Now, when you look at that context and coming to the 2010 Constitution that has been lauded all over as being very progressive and upholding the tenets of democracy, then we have to question ourselves why 2013 we didn't do the maximum as Kenyan voters to get women in elective positions. 2017, although as we put it as FIDA, when we do the gender analysis after every general election, 2017 for us was quite a success in terms of representation. We had 3 governors. We had 23 single constituency members of parliament who were elected by voters. Now, come to 2022, will we see the doubling? Will we see the gender equality card having been achieved? So now we are here.
So that's the context.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
Yeah.
We've been making incremental gains, like you've said, since the beginning, since LegCo days up to 2017, the 12th Parliament, there have been incremental gains made. The question is whether we are prepared or whether we are going to see more improvement.
Sure. So, Sophie, what factors, and I want to assume that this was done, but what factors then led to the incremental gains that we saw 2013, 2017, 2022, that we see the women who occupy those positions today? What would you say are the factors that led to the increment that we saw then between 2013 and 2017? And if we're able to identify those, are we then able to leverage those to hope, again, for the doubling of the numbers in 2022 that you're talking about?
So when we look at factors, we have to look at the negative and positive variables. So when you look at the negative variables that contribute to the minimal numbers of women in politics, we look at factors like resources. Are women enabled in terms of resources to get out there and campaign for themselves? We look at factors like gender norms. Traditionally, in our society, women are culturalized to not pursue leadership positions. Then we go further and look at the legal framework. Mm-hmm. Although we have the 2010 Constitution having the minimums on gender equalities, there are other legislative requirements that have been put in there to ensure that is actually realized. However, the Parliament in 2013, 2017 has never achieved that. Mm-hmm. And that's something we've been pushing through the court process and through lobbying parliamentarians to have the 2/3 gender rule legislated. Now, when we go to the positive, why we have the incremental aspect that we've seen from 2013 to now, I would put it in three particular scenarios. When the Constitution in 2013 was introduced, largely being an introductory process those 5 years, the levels of awareness of women and how to participate in the electoral processes was not actually there. And this has been documented because in 2013, it was a whole new constitution. How to get through the elective positions and how to position yourself through the electoral positions was not really part of put out there like a civic education process. Mm-hmm. Now, when you look at 2017, of course, people learned a lot. And when you have, first of all, a pedestal where you're seeing women have made it, yep. Then there is that aspect of role modeling and pushing women up the ladder.
Yep.
So those two aspects have made it possible for 2017. More women got elected because they could see, I can also do it. Even a girl in the village would think that, okay, now I can manage to put myself out there. And we've seen the numbers from the gazetted candidates in 2022. Mm-hmm. More and more women have put themselves out there. And it's become a movement.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the decision, though, on the part of the voter? Because we've looked at the numbers, and you look at about maybe of those who are registered to vote, 50% of those voters are women, right? But the person who is putting such an individual in a position also is making a conscious decision. Why do we see that even when there are women who have put themselves up for elective positions, the women are still not voting them in? Because one would assume that if you're saying more women ought to be in these positions, more women are putting themselves up for these positions, their kin as women then would also vote them in. But we didn't see that happening in large numbers. Why?
When we look at the voting patterns, people vote out of whatever issues that candidates present themselves to them. Mm-hmm. And we all know that the woman's candidature is not monolithic. Mm-hmm. The issues and the agenda they present may not necessarily resonate concurrently with the voter who comes in and votes. Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of having a feel of what is happening on the ground in order to present your manifesto in a realistic and an approachable way that the voter will be part of the process. So, for example, because we have been in this process as FIDA-Kenya for the 2 cycles, and we have had studies and seen, having been working in the grassroots level to the regional level, and having as members women who present themselves for elective positions, who are FIDA members. We've had quite an update on what we should be doing. And one of the things that we found out from these studies is that as female candidates present themselves, there is that gap that we identified as part of the capacity on how to brand themselves, first of all, how to present their manifestos, and how to resource mobilize around those particular issues. And that's why last year, 2021, when we were after launching our voter data campaign, we went further and did the Women Leadership Academy, an academy where we brought in the female aspirants then to come in and get these particular skill sets, bringing in industry pacemakers, and equally bringing in political leaders who've made it to be part of that aspect of pushing them up the ladder. So it is a process that goes on, and we hope, and we've seen from the gazettement of these women in the candidature level, they have done better this time in terms of presenting themselves. So it's upon the voter to go and make a conscious decision that having presented this and having known that women have a better managerial skill set when it comes to managing matters of governance and for the electorate and the people they represent.
Do they really?
Yes. Studies have shown that.
Women make better. Who conducted these studies, if I may ask?
Several governance institutions.
Headed by women,
including
perhaps?
us. Including us.
Several governance institutions headed by women found that women are better managers of resources.
You know, I'm an avowed supporter for greater representation in leadership positions by women. And I think from where I see, like you said initially, positive strides being made constantly. There are several hurdles, but we'll discuss the hurdles. But just to go back into what Ndu had asked earlier, I mean, are we seeing the voter perception on a woman as a suitable leader changing? I want to add the other side of the question, which is, have we seen an increase in the number of women candidates, or even aspirants? An increase in the number of women candidates? Is there a proportional increase in the number of those candidates then getting the approval by voters?
Latif, when you ask such a question, then we have to look at the dynamics being presented by the pollsters. The pollsters that have been doing the works for the last 2 weeks. They have been presenting the gender division on how the elections will go. And we can see, especially after a major political party announced deputy presidential candidates as a woman, there was a mass movement, even for political parties, to catch up. So for me, I am of the opinion that the society itself is ready to have women in decision-making tables. And by having the society having that conversation and being presented, we can see all over. Women have presented their posters. They have presented their branding themselves a lot, meaning the perception by the voters will definitely change.
It's by and by going to change.
Yes.
My question is, if you look at the 2007, 2013, 2017, let's just focus on 2013 and 2017, the number of candidates of the female gender who were out of the 290 constituencies, how many women candidates were there? Then look at 2017, how many women candidates were there? Were they more? And does that also translate then to the increase in the number of women who were elected from the single constituencies, the 23 women who were elected in the constituency? Is it because of us having more candidates, more women candidates on the ballot?
Yes, and also having institutions support women. And by institutions, I mean political parties and the necessary legal framework. Now, when you look at the political parties, in terms of it is the gatekeeper and the inroads for women in elections and in politics. So political parties, I must say, have really shaped up since 2010, 2013, 2017, 2022. They are now discussing more and more how to include women in the political party formations, governance institutions, and all that. So having institutions support this gender agenda means that when it comes to presentation of candidates who will be the ballot, then they will have a sense of having the women that they have recruited through the processes in the years be part of the elections. Now, after looking at those institutions, we are also having complementary institutions that support the electoral process in itself. The Office of the Registrar of Political Parties has been very categorical in terms of having political parties comply with the Constitution. And the Constitutional compliance includes gender equality. The court themselves have pronounced themselves in terms of having proportional representation of women. So when you have institutions working for women, then the society will see that this is the path to go. And the numbers, as you've said, going back to your earlier question, the numbers from 2013, 2017, 2022 have had that incremental progress because of this wholesome concept of the electoral process to ensure that there is compliance come 2022 Parliament.
Don't you think you should change yourself when you seek for equality as opposed to seeking for equity?
Those two concepts are different.
Yes, they are.
They are different.
Yes, they
when you look at equality, then it means balance of power between
You're
women.
looking for parity.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. When you go to equity, it's a matter of almost systemic.
Yes, it is.
So we can't compare both. Gender equality
Actually, I'm
is a
asking.
variable itself, and equity is
I
another
agree.
variable.
I agree. But you see, let me explain why I'm saying this. Huh? The girl child, for the longest time, was disadvantaged in this country. Anyone who's lived here long enough knows that that is just a simple fact. Issues that even pertain to health, and let me speak of HIV and AIDS because that's an area I know well. Women, the girl child suffered the most. When you talk about issues that pertain to pregnancies, you see, pregnancies don't occur on their own. Usually two people are involved. The girl child bears the brunt of it. They're the ones who have to miss school. They're the ones who have to do all sorts of things. And the co-conspirator goes scot-free. One doesn't even hear of them. Now, I understand the need to bridge this gap. I understand it fully. The question I'm asking is, even as we bridge this gap, there is a need for those who have had an undue advantage to also understand why this gap needs to be bridged, and not old fogies like myself. No. I'm referring to people who are younger so that the female agenda can be embraced by both the girl child or the women and the men. If it is embraced by both, then that agenda has a far better chance of moving the direction that you want. If it just focuses on women empowerment but doesn't consider the other, then you will at some point meet headwinds. That really is the point I am trying to make.
I agree with you, Muga. Also, I present to you that in the work that we've been doing, the equity card has been played in three ways. First of all, in our capacity building, in our engagements with communities around the country, we've been involving male champions. Male champions are guys who can come in and advocate for gender equality. And by doing so, they also engage men in this process. And by engaging men and the boy child in this process, as we so like to call, we've seen that they feel that their participation in the movement has created a resource for them also to build themselves. So as we build the woman, we are also building the man in terms of skill set in pushing for affirmative action and ensuring that they have the necessary knowledge to undertake the work that we are doing. Also, as we do this work, for equity to be part of the process, we also are very keen to have that distinction that when we talk about gender equality, we never mean woman equality. We mean both men and women. So that when we do our core work, that is also includes support, legal support through our offices around the country. We have those scenarios where when a woman presents themselves for assistance in our office, we at the first instant tell them that we are here for your family. If you can go through the mediation process, if you can go through another process that is not necessarily a comparative process, then we start with that. Then we go back to, if that fails, then we go to the other process. So for us, gender also means equity.
Eric, you're going to tell us we're going on a break, isn't it?
Yes. 8:30.
So the question I have in Niweke,
the question comes after this break.
Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Sophie Kaiveria is a senior program officer at FIDA-Kenya. We are talking about this coming election. Why should we elect more women come Tuesday into various positions of leadership? They're hosting the show, Nduoko, Eric Latif, and Siti Muga.
Yes, I liked what Sophie said about the gender representation and the gender focus when it comes to dealing with matters that come to the doorstep of FIDA. So I have to ask the question, what's the membership of FIDA? How many members are there in FIDA?
FIDA is a membership organization, like you pointed out. We are constituted by female lawyers who are either students or who are in practice. And I must say, we have senior members who are in these governance institutions of Kenya, who are part of FIDA. Our membership so far, we are 1,500, and we continue to grow.
And spread right across the country?
Yes, spread across the country.
Is there any part of the country where you're not represented?
I would have to check, but we are
everywhere. Okay.
Yeah, in terms of representation.
How many of your members are men?
FIDA-Kenya is proud to say that in our membership, we advocate for men to be part of the process. By being part of the process, we mean that we also have a category called Friends of FIDA. By Friends of FIDA, you as a man can be part of the FIDA movement.
Do not be in doubt. I am a man. Yes. Go on. Yes.
And you believe in our mission to uphold the socio-economic, political rights of women, can be part of our engagements as a friend of FIDA. By a friend of FIDA, you can support us through our services that we offer. We offer legal support, psychosocial support, and also offer mediation and advocacy. So in your skill set as communication personnel, then you can come in and support some of our engagements we do as FIDA. And also put the face out there that we are inclusive enough to include men in the
conversation.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, we're saying, even as we look at this and looking at the important question of why, then we need to put more women into elective positions. Probably a further question to that would then be how. We're looking at an election that's taking place on Tuesday. We're having the conversation and saying there's a possibility of you putting more women in. But I think the question now that I think we've established why. We know that women can make good leaders. We know that they have the administrative and managerial skills to be able to do this. We've seen women in elective positions in the country and seen the strides that they've been able to make. The question, though, is how? Is there willingness on the part of the electorate to have this done? Is there adequate understanding on the part of the electorate to say that we can make this decision decision based on what we have seen? And is it not to them that the focus ought to be in terms of the how, in terms of the spreading of the information, in terms of over the next 3 days to establish what may be, just an idea and land it so that it is something fundamental that will be used to make the decision at the ballot?
Yeah, when you look at the electorate, whatever forms their decisions is largely contributed by the environment. Now, when you look at the environment, I would say the media and is part of the advocacy towards women in politics. That's why we are at the Voter Data Campaign. Voter Data Campaign means that you should vote a sister. And why we are promoting this campaign is that by having an inclusive media that projects the stories of women and what they have done, and I'm glad that most of the media stations have adopted this. It's a matter of how you present it, especially during prime time when people are there watching, listening to the news agenda, so that the electorate knows that this particular woman is going to be in the elections and they're seeking their votes. Also, for the women candidates, we've been actually talking to them and having engagement with them in terms of experience sharing with existing female politicians. That when you do your grassroots mobilization, your presence there should be well known, so that the electorate knows that there is a woman who is there vying for an elective position. For instance, if I may give an example, if you're vying in a community in the village, like my village, you are not necessarily supposed to be here in town conducting your campaign. You should be down there conducting your campaign so the electorate know that you are the person they should elect. Resonate with their reasons so that whatever agenda or issues you're presenting to them as part of the issues you'll be handling as an elected official are real and resonate with the issues that they are going through. The economic prospects in that community, for instance, whether it's healthcare, whether it's provision of essential services that government should provide, like water, should be some of the things that you talk about with the electorate. And for us, we believe that once you package your issues that resonate with the citizen, then when it comes to the elections day, they will have that conscious decision. None of us has that pull towards making the electorate vote this way to a woman. It's upon their conscious individual decisions to go on and vote for a woman. But before they do that, please, as the candidates, we've been emphasizing on them being very, very targeted in their messaging to the electorate.
You said that you've, as FIDA-Kenya and other organizations, you've been working on this agenda for quite a while. It was a big win when it was included in the Constitution. It was a big win when it was implemented in the 2013 election and 2017 election. And so you have the numbers and you've been studying the numbers and the figures. So let's talk numbers now, okay? On Tuesday, Kenyans are going to the polls. They will be participating in elections for 6 different positions. In the last election, like you said, we saw an increase in the number of directly elected MPs who were women, 23 of them, 3 governors who were women, and of course more MCAs who were women, more senator, right?
Yes.
If we look into this election, let's look at the number of seats. 1,450 wards, that's 1,450 MCAs, 290 constituencies, 47 senators, 47 women rep, of course those are going to be women, 47 governors, 1 president. There's no woman who's a presidential candidate. So let's remove the 1 president, let's remove the 47 women reps. But still, in total, it's 1,882 elective positions on Tuesday. From the numbers that you have, how many women candidates do we have in this election?
From the gazetted notice by IBC, we've seen 43 women present themselves as governor candidates, and they have been gazetted by IBC to pursue. So when you look at 43, and the last election we had 3.
Three candidates?
3 candidates who were elected. And 43. What does that tell you? It tells you that the increase in the interest for seeking that particular position has grown.
Yep.
Of course, from what I earlier said, that the role modeling aspect when it comes to the elective positions interest also has a contributory factor to that. If, for instance, they have seen that Honorable Waiguru, Honorable Gilu has done it, then they themselves will feel that they can do it. So that's a push.
Okay.
So from 43, Latif, I'm guaranteeing you will get more than 3 governors, which will be an increase from the last election. Then when you look at the you've not said the deputy governor's positions. Deputy governor positions in the last elections, I think there were about 3 who were just part of the deputy governor position. But now they are whooping 57 deputy governors who are part of the process to get the governorship with their male counterparts.
Candidate running mates.
Yes, running mates. Now, when you see it like that, it means when come 2027, most probably the deputy
There'll be more.
There'll be more.
So do we have a higher number of women who are going for the constituency seats? At
Yes,
290?
even that.
How many do we have?
We have about 350.
350
Yes,
candidates.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Who are pursuing the women candidate, the single constituency elective positions. It should be about 340.
How many for Senate?
For Senate, I've seen 42.
Okay.
42.
Looking at your projections, then as FIDA-Kenya and maybe with the other organizations, what numbers do you expect to see going through or winning these seats? If we look at 23 on the 12th Parliament, how many do you project to see on in the 13th Parliament? Elected single constituency women MPs.
When you look at 2013, 2017, percentage increase was about 7%. So if we do 7% for this one, maybe we put 10% because there is more awareness on these elective positions and seats. Then we hope from the 23 we may move to
29, 30.
To 30. Actually, my projection is 30.
Okay.
Then
You've said 10 governors.
yes. No, I'm hoping. I'm hoping to. Actually, that is my prayer and hope that we have at least double the number of governors.
6.
Yes.
Okay.
From the last elections, and then the senatorial we move from 12 to at least 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this based on work that you've actually done in working with all these women candidates, in supporting them in what you're saying? If it's about branding, if it's about positioning them, if it's about supporting them in how they package their campaign messaging, is it the work that you've been doing?
Part of it has been the work. And I can say that learning from the 2017 auditing on how the elections were conducted, one of the other things that was presented themselves was, like I said, lack of the knowledge on the electoral processes. And when we come to this election, knowledge and support through the electoral process. When we came into the 2022 elections, we were very prepared in terms of having a cohort of lawyers coming in and be trained by us to support the women when they are doing the party primaries, that murky electoral dispute process that goes in through that process. Then also, during the electoral process itself, we've had these lawyers being part of the process. Also, because elections come with gender-based violence, and which has been reported by most female candidates, senior and the whole.
And then Trump.
Yeah. that gender-based violence in elections is real and is something they have to deal with on a daily basis when it comes. So we've been having monitors across the country to monitor these incidences. When you have these measures complementary with other institutions who are doing the monitoring for gender-based violence and having proper referral pathways. By referral pathways, we mean healthcare institutions are very well equipped and capacity built in terms of evidence, documentation, and presentation, so that when you come to, as lawyers, when we do the legal process of prosecuting this gender-based violence, it means that justice will be meted out, and the perpetrators will be they'll be now more conscious of what they say and do in rallies and all that. So with that kind of scenario, it means women are more, they will put themselves out there because the system works for them and there are mechanisms to assist them throughout the process. So yeah, it has been a concerted effort, us and other partners in the process.
So as strong advocates for this, so for the realization of this gender requirement in the Constitution, what is FIDA-Kenya's position when it comes to the 13th Parliament? If it does not meet the gender threshold, should the president immediately dissolve that parliament? He gets on in the next day, he says, you know what, as head of state, I have to tell you, I've got a job to do. Constitution says, go back to the people. Should he?
Latif, when it comes to that, then I go to my law. I say the law is the law, and
The
it
law is
has
clear.
Yeah, and it has been pronounced by the court and the former Chief Justice that the due process of the law has to be followed when it comes to the parliament composition. So it has been our rallying call to encourage all political players to see it that gender equality is not something we have to fight over for the next 5 years. And if need be, we are ready because, like I've said, we have pro bono lawyers who we've trained on this electoral process, who will come in as part of our package towards pushing for gender equality.
Sophie, why didn't, in all your planning, why didn't you consider, or maybe you did, and I'm the one who is ignorant, consider ensuring that political parties not only have a discussion about this, but they also entrench it in their processes so that this 1/3, 2/3 gender rule they were speaking about is actually part and parcel of their process? Because if you leave the actual election to the vagaries of election, the chances of us meeting that threshold is really slim.
Now, Muga, the Political Parties Act has this printed out for them so that they are aware that it should be in the governance positions that gender equality is there. In the political parties list itself, it has to show that there is gender equality. However, we have also seen that because of the democratic space and the strength of institutions that Kenya enjoys, we as citizens are allowed to go to court and challenge certain pronouncements from these institutions. So if you look at the case on the 2/3 gender rule that was brought in court the other day in May, when political parties did not meet the threshold in the lists on how 2/3 gender rule. That is part of the process. It's a discussion where the law and the political will has to come in so that we can see the push to gender equality is not a singular move by just FIDA. It is a concerted effort by all stakeholders and players in the electoral process.
And if the electoral process doesn't produce it, does it not also tell you a story that the electoral process and those who elect are not ready for this particular enactment?
Muga, when we look at the constitutional law, the constitution is always segmented as a living document. That is why we had those initiatives to see how we can review it to solve some of the issues that we are talking about today. This is why, as a democratic nation, moving forward, we learn each year on what is happening in terms of achieving the hopes and dreams that was put in there in the constitution by all of us as Kenyans and were voted for. So that as we progress, like I always say, our democracy is still young. We are growing. By the time we get to the developed nations kind of democracy, then we will have grown much more and put in measures in place, learning from the challenges and the issues that we come about on everyday governance implementation. Yeah.
So, you are for progressive realization of some of these ideals?
I would say that.
Okay.
Yes.
So the 13th Parliament does not necessarily have to be dissolved if there's some gain from the 12th Parliament.
Like I've said, it was declared that it was unconstitutional. And I'm thinking even in the 13th Parliament, if it does not meet the threshold, then it will be declared unconstitutional. Then the law will have to be applied.
I think
You two sides of the same mouth.
Yeah, precisely, because here she is specifically focusing on the letter of the law. And there is a spirit of the law, which in my mind deals with the reality of what we are facing. You have put the test, the proof of this particular pudding to the electorate. And the electorate have told you this is what we think of it. And it is we, the people of Kenya, we, who are the...
Sovereign.
Yes, exactly. And we have told you, we understand the two-third rule, but this is how we've gone about understanding it.
So Muga, you know, there are
Yes.
two schools of thought.
Yes.
And you have to be alive.
Only two?
No, when it comes to upholding the gender equality.
Yes.
And you have to be alive to these schools of thought.
Yes.
What makes it realizable? Is it through the declaring Parliament unconstitutional every time it does not realize the two-third gender rule? Or we go the constitutional review process? So when we look at those two extremes, then we have to make a judgment call on what is best for Kenya. And for that to happen, the democratic processes that includes institutions of the court have to be put into gear, so that we already have the systems in
You
place.
see where equity comes in, because then it's what gives you the platform from whence prospective women candidates, female candidates, can have this opportunity to have what they need to present themselves so that they're on an equal footing with the men who've had a huge advantage and a huge head start.
As you conclude the conversation, Sophie, I want to give you 30 seconds. Speak to Kenyans, all right? Elections are in 4 days' time. What would you like them to think of as they go to the ballot?
Thank you, Latif. Fellow Kenyans, as you go towards the elections, look at where we have been. Has that journey been good because women have been part of it? If yes, then look at what has challenged the women into elections. If that challenge has been presented to you as something that can be broken once we elect women, then that is okay. Then for the future, ensure that as you vote, gender equality, the person you're voting in has your issues and resonates with what you want Kenya to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much.